Hello, and welcome to Imperfect in an Uncertain World, Resources for Living with Authenticity and Purpose. Have you ever had a dream, but you've discovered that the dream wasn't really a dream, it was a fantasy? And so sometimes fantasy blurs into our dream, and our dream edges closer into fantasy. There's really a fine line between a fantasy and a dream. So let's talk a little bit about what happens when we find ourselves in that fine line, in that blurry area between a fantasy and a dream. So begin with a few definitions. A dream is a desired goal. It may be your reason for living. Your dream may be the fruit of your soul purpose. A fantasy is really an unrealistic outcome based upon a want. And so sometimes it's easy to see how the line between the two gets blurred. And that happens when we are unaware. Through mindfulness, we can discern what is a fantasy and what is a dream. So when we become aware, we can see how we encroach this fine line. And that discovery all happens through something called discernment. And in discernment, through reflection and introspection, we really discern what we need versus what we unrealistically want that we really don't have a hope of attaining. Only through this reflection and introspection can we separate fantasy from the dream and really begin to reach our goals. Now, there's a power in our dreams, and that propels us to our goals, both in the short term and the long term. Each step towards the dream gives us the energy to try one more time to succeed, no matter what our perceived and our real limitations. And that's important too during the discernment process, is to discover what is a perceived limitation and what is really a true and accurate one. And even the true and accurate limitations, I like to see those as challenges that we overcome on the road to realized dreams. Now let's back up and talk a little bit more about fantasies. Fantasies are basically illusions. Through them, we create false, unsustainable pathways through our life. And then caught in the fantasy, we don't actively engage our soul purpose. We may think we're actively engaging it, but we are not. We get mired in false hope. The fantasy becomes the beginning, the middle, and the end of the journey. So we just really get stuck. Now I'm going to say, if a dream is a wish your heart makes, then a fantasy is born from unresolved suffering. Through this suffering-induced fantasy, we may believe that a challenge is a barrier to be leapt over, instead of dismantled by learning the lesson. And when we are enmeshed in the fantasy, we lose the capability to reframe. And that's so powerful, is the ability to reframe something into a positive or meet the challenge to see what the lesson is in that. The fantasy deludes us into believing that everything will be okay, even when it cannot be okay. So what I'm going to say next might be really surprising, given what I've said about fantasies. Every dream must have a bit of fantasy woven into it. It's the part of dreaming big that propels us into new heights. It's the part of us that says, why not, instead of why. This fantasy is a place of exploration. Here we are daring and curious as we seek the possible that is birthed from the impossible. So allowing just a bit of fantasy to seed your dream is the power of being a change agent. It's being a willing participant in transformation. It's being willing to be in transition in whatever that means. It's being flexible enough to allow your dream to evolve exactly how you need in order to live with soul purpose. Now, a dreamer has goals, has respect for the potential of the impossible becoming possible, and has a plan while being open to the guidance of their intuition. Within those intuitive whispers are found the fantastical moments that nudge her closer to her dream. Wow. I hope you have a clear understanding of fantasies and dreams and how they work together and how they don't work together. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Additional resources are available at intentandaction.com. That's intentandaction.com. If you need some help working on those goals, those dreams, contact me as an intuitive coach catalyst. I'd be happy to work with you to kind of jumpstart that intuitive being inside of you. But most of all, I hope that you ride the fine line between fantasy and dream into the realizations of your dream. Thanks, and have a terrific day.